The phone rang just as I was unloading the groceries, bags full of rosemary, fresh cranberries, and brisket, the kind of haul that screams family recipe in motion. I answered without checking the caller ID. Only one person had the uncanny timing to call just when my hands were full. Maris, Joelle's voice was clipped, emotionless. "We've decided it's best if you don't come to Thanksgiving this year." For a second, I thought she was joking. But Joelle Braxley, my mother-in-law, had never been much of a comedian. "Wait, what?" I asked, confused. "Is everything okay?" "It's just better this way," she said. "We want a more uplifting atmosphere this year." I stood frozen, a can of chicken stock in one hand, my phone in the other. My heart knocked against my ribs, not in sadness yet, but disbelief. "I've already started prepping the brisket," I said slowly, still trying to catch up to her words. "I'm sure you have," she replied. "But it's best for everyone." That's when she dropped the hammer. "I'm only doing what Colton thought would be appropriate." Click. She hung up before I could ask anything else. Before I could ask what exactly Colton thought was appropriate. Or why my being there would somehow spoil their precious atmosphere. The silence in the kitchen was louder than any shout. I stood there staring at my reflection in the microwave door, holding groceries meant for a dinner I was no longer welcome at. I should have known. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, still not moving. The call kept replaying in my head, each sentence colder the more I dissected it. Colton. My husband. My partner. Had he really told his mother to uninvite me? I swiped back through my messages. A week ago, he'd casually mentioned I should take this holiday to rest, do something for myself. At the time, I chalked it up to support. I'd just lost my job. He knew I'd been stretched thin. But now. I texted him, "Did you know about this?" 3 dots. Then they disappeared. Then came the message, "Let's talk later." I stared at that text like it might rearrange itself into something less hollow. I scrolled through our family group chat, dead silent. Joelle had posted a pumpkin tart recipe last week. No one responded. I'd replied with a picture of my cranberry brisket marinade. No likes. No replies. Just silence. I whispered, "They planned this." It wasn't just Joelle. It wasn't just an oversight. It was deliberate. I opened the fridge. The raw brisket stared back at me from its plastic wrap, surrounded by fresh herbs and tart cranberries. I'd bought the ingredients this morning. Not because I was told to, because I wanted to. This brisket was my grandmother's recipe. It was my tradition. My peace offering every year. One more attempt to be accepted. I unwrapped the brisket and set it on the cutting board. My hands moved automatically, reaching for garlic, for cloves. The motions were muscle memory. Then I stopped. I looked down at the cutting board, at the marbled meat, and it all hit me. Every Thanksgiving I'd ever smiled through. Every time Joelle had corrected how I seasoned the gravy. Every time she had called me a little too different for Texas, but not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. That phrase had lived rent-free in my mind since she first said it. I dropped the knife. My hand shook. I turned off the lights, closed the fridge, and sat on the floor of the kitchen. They'd never seen me. Not really. I was a formality. A +1 to Colton's life. I cooked. I smiled. I tried. But I was never family. Not in their eyes. I packed the ingredients back into their bags, sealed the brisket, and placed it in the freezer. Not because I still hoped to serve it, because I couldn't bear to look at it anymore. An hour later, I found myself scrolling on my phone, the kitchen now dim, my body wrapped in a blanket like armor. That's when I saw it. A photo, posted just 20 minutes before Joelle's call. There they were, Colton, Joelle, and Ariel, Colton's sister, smiling with wine glasses in hand at the Vineyard House downtown. The caption, "Family first, 2 hearts." Family. I stared at the picture like it had personally slapped me. I texted him again, "Were you going to tell me?" No reply. The picture was proof. It wasn't about the atmosphere. It wasn't about me needing rest. I had been written out. And no one even bothered to use a pencil, they used a permanent marker. I set the phone down and sat in silence. They don't see me as family. I was a placeholder. A house key without a home. I opened our family group chat. Looked at all the messages, the photos, the plans I hadn't been included in. Then I deleted the thread. The air in the house shifted. Lighter. Still bitter, but clearer. This Thanksgiving, I whispered, I'll start something new. I walked to the window, stared out at the dusk settling over the neighborhood. All those homes lighting up with warmth, families making space at tables I'd never be invited to. They thought cutting me out would keep things clean. They had no idea what they'd just started. I was wiping down the counter, scrubbing away cranberry juice that had splattered when I unpacked the groceries. My mind was numb, replaying Joelle's voice, Colton's silence, the words that sliced deeper than they should have. And then, ding. The sound was small, familiar, but something in me paused. I dried my hands and picked up the phone. It was a message from Tessa Linwood. We weren't close anymore, but she wasn't the kind of person to text late at night unless it mattered. The preview stopped my breath. I thought you should see this. I'm sorry. 3 screenshots. No context, no commentary. Just cold proof. I tapped the first one, heart pounding. It was a private group chat. The participants, Colton and Ariel. Ariel, she's dead weight. An emotional parasite. You really want her dragging everyone down on Thanksgiving? Colton, she's already humiliated herself. No need to bring that energy to the table. My thumb hovered over the screen, but I couldn't move. I stared at their words like they were written in fire. Parasite. Dead weight. From the people I bought brisket for. Smiled through holidays for. Paid tuition for. I sat down, legs weak under the weight of betrayal. My phone slipped from my hand to the table with a dull clack. It wasn't just exclusion. It was orchestration. They didn't forget me. They planned around me. Planned without me. And they didn't just talk about me. They mocked me. I opened my message history with Colton, scrolling through old texts that, until tonight, I'd taken comfort in. Happy birthday, Maris. You always make things special. You've been amazing through all this. I don't deserve you. But looking again, with the filter of truth, those messages sounded different. Transaction-like. His praise always came after I'd done something for him or his family. Covered bills. Drove Ariel to rehab. Sat through Joelle's church fundraisers even though I didn't believe in God the way they did. My eyes stopped on one message, months old. Maris, I know you'll always come through. At the time, I'd smiled. I'd felt needed. Wanted. Now it felt like a receipt. My replies were always the same, of course, no problem, whatever you need. Not once had I said, why? Not once had I said, no. When someone only loves you when you're useful, is that love, or is it just a lease? I whispered it aloud, and the silence that followed agreed with me. I started pacing. Should I reply to the group chat? Post the screenshots? Out them all? I opened a new message, fingers flying. You think you're better than me? After everything I did for you? You called me family, then made me a joke. I stared at the draft. Deleted it. I started again, this time just to Ariel. Tell me what I did to deserve that. But before I could hit send, ding. Another screenshot. This one was worse. Colton to Ariel, she's our walking wallet. For now. There it was. No misreading. No context to change it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood still. So this is who they are. I walked to the mirror in the hallway. The same mirror I used every day to check if I looked presentable for family dinners. I looked different now. Not in makeup. Not in hair. In eyes. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the threat they didn't see coming. I gathered the screenshots, saved them in a folder on my phone. I titled it, Evidence. It wasn't for revenge. Not yet. It was for clarity. For remembering. I texted Tessa, thank you. You didn't have to. She replied almost instantly, I had to. You've been too kind for too long. I stared at that sentence until it blurred. I opened my notes app and pulled up a quote I'd saved years ago from my grandmother's old notebook. The most dangerous kindness is the one that goes unnoticed until it's gone. I set an alarm for the morning. First thing, I'd cancel the auto payments for Ariel's credit cards. Pull my name from Joelle's health insurance. Separate my accounts from Colton's. Not out of vengeance. Out of dignity. I uploaded the screenshots to the cloud. Password protected. Shared them with an email address I hadn't used in years. Then, in my notes, I wrote. They've never seen me without chains. They will. I slid under the covers, more alert than sleepy. The apartment was quiet, but not peaceful. Still, I felt sharper than I had in weeks. When I finally closed my eyes, my phone buzzed again. 10 missed calls. 1 unread voicemail. And suddenly, I knew they were afraid. The morning light pushed through the slits in the blinds like it had somewhere better to be. I woke up late, head foggy, my mouth dry with the stale taste of sleep and silence. My phone, still glowing from the night before, sat on the nightstand with Colton's name plastered across the screen, 10 missed calls. No voicemails, no apologies. Just a name, blinking like it mattered. Outside my window, I heard the faint echo of life happening, neighbors laughing, silverware clinking against plates, a child shouting pumpkin pie, like it was a war cry. Thanksgiving. The sounds felt intrusive, like someone threw a party in a house you were kicked out of. I made coffee without thinking, letting the machine groan and spit and breathe like it understood something was wrong. I didn't turn on music. The silence filled the apartment like fog, thick, still, loud. The TV was still on from last night. A chipper anchor smiled through perfect teeth, listing 10 ways to be grateful this season. I watched, unmoved, as they talked about family bonds, the power of togetherness. It felt cruel, scripted by someone who never felt forgotten. Gratitude, I thought bitterly, feels different when everyone you loved made you disposable. I checked my phone again. Still nothing from Colton. Just his digital absence, neat and quiet like everything else about him. I sipped my coffee and swallowed the burn like it was penance. I opened Instagram. I knew I shouldn't have. But sometimes you need to touch the bruise just to feel it's still there. The Braxleys had posted. Of course they had. Ariel's arm looped through Colton's. Joelle's pearls tight around her neck. Everyone smiling like they invented joy. The caption read, "Grateful for the people who really matter, 2 hearts." My thumb hovered over the like button. Reflex, maybe. Habit. I locked my phone instead. I remembered one of Colton's favorite lines, "Presentation is everything, Maris. No one likes a downer at dinner." That voice echoed behind every family photo where I'd smiled through gritted teeth. Every holiday where my name was misspelled on a place card or missing entirely. Every time Joelle toasted family and never once made eye contact with me. I used to believe in earning love. That if I played the part, smiled big enough, cooked well enough, blended in deep enough, I'd be one of them. I know better now. Have you ever been erased from a story while you were still living it? That's what it felt like. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Fiona Grange. She was the woman who once dialed me by mistake and apologized so much, we ended up chatting for an hour. I hadn't heard from her in months. "Hey," she said, her voice light but warm. "I know this is last minute, but we're doing a small dinner. Just me, Greg, and my sister's kid. You're more than welcome." I blinked at the offer. It was kind. Real. But I wasn't ready to let kindness in, not yet. "I appreciate it," I said softly. "But I think I need a quiet night. Just me." "No one should eat alone on Thanksgiving," Fiona said gently. I smiled, even though it cracked. I'm not alone. I'm just recalibrating. After we hung up, I stared at the bags in the fridge. The brisket. The cranberries. The effort that had meant something 2 nights ago. I unpacked them again. But this time, I cooked only for one. I didn't light candles. Didn't play music. I just chopped, stirred, seasoned, moving through each motion like I was reclaiming space in my own life. Sometimes you have to feed yourself the way no one else ever did. When the brisket was done, I ate in silence. It wasn't joyful, but it was mine. And in a strange way, that felt like enough. Night crept in slowly, wrapping the sky in navy and ink. I lit one lamp in the corner. Just enough to see, not enough to soften the room. I remembered my grandmother's voice, soft and scratchy from too many cigarettes and not enough apologies. The loneliest meals build the strongest women. She was right. I picked up my journal and flipped to a fresh page. Next year, I won't be invisible. I let the pen rest on the table. And that's when the phone buzzed again. A message from Tessa, "You might want to see what Ariel just posted." The notification glowed like a dare. Tessa's message lit up the dark, "Ariel's crying online. And she's blaming you." The coffee was dark, bitter, and exactly what I needed. I sat at my desk, the same one where I used to draft family holiday budgets and monthly meal plans. Now it was a war table. My laptop screen glowed with numbers, account statements, transaction logs, names attached to funds I thought were built on partnership. There it was, tuition commitment, Braxley Center. Initiated 3 years ago. Under my name. I stared at it. My fingers hovered over the mouse like they weren't mine. This wasn't just money, it was my name, my credit, my future leveraged for their comfort. I remembered signing that household fund agreement thinking I was being smart, being fair. I thought it meant unity. Turns out, it meant I'd pay while they smiled for family photos that I wasn't invited to. They never asked what I was paying for, I whispered. Only that I delivered. Have you ever realized you were funding someone else's brand while they erased your value? I picked up my phone and dialed Nash Colburn. He answered on the second ring. Maris, he said, already knowing why I was calling. It's time, I said. I want my name off every joint account. Everything. We lock it down. There was a pause. Not out of hesitation, but wait. Nash understood. Once you file the motion, he said, he'll feel it. I opened the bank's online portal. Clicked through the dual authentication prompts like I was disarming a bomb. There it was, the joint asset account. Still full. Still open. Still smiling on the surface like nothing was broken underneath. I clicked Initiate Withdrawal Clause. A pop-up asked me to confirm I understood the consequences. I did. I clicked Yes. Then another, Transfer to Retention Account, Primary Holder Only. Yes. One more, Submit. I paused. My hands shook. But when I pressed the button, they stilled. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing this because somewhere between their holidays and my sacrifices, I forgot what dignity felt like. This was the first step to remembering. If you lost your job, would you feel empowered or betrayed by the system you built together? The text came an hour later. Colton, why did you freeze the fund? We talked about this. Meeting at the club tomorrow. I didn't answer. I just smiled. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. I refreshed the investment portfolio page. The balance now read $0. I could almost see his face, confused, blinking too fast, the way he did when things didn't go his way. He'd call Joel. Then his lawyer. Then me. I poured another cup of coffee. The darkness outside felt less like a threat now, more like cover. My grandmother once told me, when you give someone your power, they'll spend it without asking. I thought I understood it then. I understand it better now. Have you ever watched someone panic because you stopped giving what they assumed you always would? I opened a new draft email to Tessa. Subject, August tuition, statement needed. Body, tomorrow I'll need your statement on what you saw in August with the tuition payments. Let's lock that down now. I hit send. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop, Proof, Braxley Misuse. I uploaded the screenshots. Bank statements. Old texts. The kind words that now read like contracts. This wasn't about blasting them online, not yet. It was about leverage. Positioning. Building strength in silence. Colton once told me during a fight, you should invest less emotionally and more financially. Back then, I nodded. Thought he meant budgeting smarter. Now I know he meant his financials. Not mine. I stood by the window and stared out at the Charleston sky. It was cold, crisp. Still. I whispered to myself, no more invisibility. Then I saw it. A new voicemail icon. Caller ID, Joelle Braxley. I pressed play. Her voice snapped through the speaker like a match strike. Colton demands you come home, and he's bringing a lawyer. I deleted the voicemail. But I already knew I would show up. The call came just after lunch, like a storm cloud edging over a calm sky. Joelle's voice was crisp, like always, but there was venom tucked behind each syllable. "We need you at the house tonight." "A family meeting," she said, like it was a summons I had no right to refuse. She didn't wait for my answer. "You've shown your true colors, Maris. This family doesn't need your darkness. You've ruined the holiday mood." I didn't flinch, not right away. I froze. Like the words had sliced through the skin and hit something deeper. Something old. But then the freeze passed, and in its place came fire. A quiet, focused burn. "Has someone you trusted ever made your presence feel like a threat?" I said aloud, not to her, but to myself and maybe to anyone listening in the universe. I hung up. I didn't scream or cry. I just stared out the window, the Charleston sky muted and still. And I realized they weren't calling me to confront me. They were calling me because they were afraid of what I might do next. I stood in front of the mirror, tying the belt of my navy coat. I looked clean, polished, strong. But more than that, I looked unshakable. I had never felt that before. Not even on my wedding day. Colton once told me, "When I succeed, you'll shine too." Back then, I believed it. I clung to it. Now it felt like a line written in invisible ink, only readable when heat was applied. And baby, the heat was here. I opened my tablet. Financial statements, payment history, tuition records, all clean, all documented. I scrolled through them with the calm of someone about to drop a bomb and already walked away. I sent Nash a quick message, "Tonight I'm ready." He responded with 2 words, "I'll be on standby." I nodded to no one. Tonight wasn't about pleading. It wasn't about asking to be understood. It was about reclaiming my voice. When did you stop hoping for validation and start demanding respect? The Braxley house was silent when I arrived. Joelle's manicured fingers folded in her lap, Colton leaning back like this was a business negotiation, not a confrontation. Ariel stood behind him, her arms crossed, chin high, the smirk just barely there. Joelle cleared her throat. "Maris, we've convened to decide if you still belong in this family." I looked around the room. How many birthdays had I sat through here, smiling while being invisible? How many dinners did I serve, only to be talked around? I took a breath. "I belong," I said, "when the truth matters more than appearances." Joelle's jaw tensed. "You've turned from helper to taker." I pulled a folded sheet from my purse. Clean columns. Numbers. Proof. Here's a list of what I've paid for over the past 7 years. Ariel's tuition. The down payment on the lake house. Colton's business dinners that were actually golf trips. Grocery bills. Electric. Internet. Your wine subscription, Joelle. Colton shifted in his chair. Ariel's smile flickered. And for the first time ever they were quiet. Have you ever had your invisible labor become visible and changed everything? I placed the sheet on the table. Sat back in my chair. No one spoke. And that silence? It was everything. Not because I had one. But because they knew I'd never be quiet again. Joelle finally moved, reaching for her glass, throat bobbing like she was swallowing glass. I didn't need their permission. I didn't need their approval. I thought of Grandma's words, "You are not defined by their table, you are defined by your truth." The wind outside howled like applause. I stood up slowly. "I'm leaving when this is done," I said. But not because I've lost. Because I've chosen. As I turned, Joelle muttered something under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear. We'll see what she really walked away with. I didn't turn back. But my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Nash. The message read, check your email, timestamp 2:45 p.m. I opened the inbox. There it was. The deed. Signed. Sealed. The entire master account now listed my name alone. The vibrations wouldn't stop. My phone lit up like a siren in the dark, text after text, call after call, social tags multiplying like weeds. Notifications stacked in layers. DMs, mentions, emails, all competing for my attention. Then one stood out. A direct message from Ariel, you'll regret this, Maris. I didn't blink. I just tapped into the hidden alerts emails forwarded to my encrypted inbox. Screenshots. PDFs, transaction history. One subject line read, Colton Braxley, lease agreement for Unit 10F, East Side Residences. The timestamp matched the months he said he was traveling for work. My breath caught. The lease wasn't in his name, it was under Ariel's. All those late dinners. Those silent weekends. That one shirt I found in the laundry that wasn't his size. It was all real. The clock read 11:47 p.m. This wasn't random. This was war. Ever been hit by a barrage of words when silence felt safer? I opened Instagram, and there she was, Ariel. Front-facing camera. Perfect lighting. Crying. I trusted her, she choked. She took from me. Lied to us all. And now this. It had that TikTok sad piano soundtrack humming underneath. Designed for sympathy. Family first. Betrayed wife. Who is Maris? The comments spiraled fast. Wow. Didn't see that coming. She always looked too quiet. Check her LinkedIn, bet she lied about more. And just like that, I became the villain in their bedtime story. I remembered Grandma's voice, they'll choose the loudest story, not the quietest truth. I didn't post. I didn't comment. I didn't defend. Instead, I opened the folder marked Proof 2025. Screenshots, bank receipts, email threads, digital statements, all waiting. I texted Tessa, prepare the depositions. We move in the morning. The room was silent, but my chest didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt solid. I used to think fairness was about speaking first. But sometimes, fairness waits. Quietly. What would you have done if your truth got silenced? Would you change your tone, or your method? I shut off Instagram. Deleted Facebook from my home screen. Paused notifications on everything. This wasn't about clapping back. This was about watching them talk themselves into a trap they couldn't see. I sat at my desk and stared through the window. The Charleston sky was black velvet, only a few pinpricks of stars winking through. Outside, cars still passed. Somewhere, someone was laughing too loud on a porch. The world was still turning. Unbothered. I sipped cold tea. Opened a new document. Typed one line. Tomorrow they wake to different rules. I set my alarm, 9 a.m. Nash would meet me at the lawyer's office. We'd bring the files. Lay the bricks. This wasn't revenge. It was infrastructure. The storm was here. But I was calm. Then the phone buzzed again. Unknown number. One voicemail. I hesitated, then pressed play. A calm voice cut through the silence. You better wake up, Maris. They're already filing. I woke to a single text flashing on my lock screen. I know the truth about the tuition payments. My throat tightened. I didn't recognize the number. No name, just a quiet thread of clarity. Another text followed. It's Dorian Hale. I was with Ariel. I have proof. Can we talk? Dorian. The ex she said ghosted her. The one who'd vanished quietly while her narrative stayed loud. My pulse tapped against my temples. Trap? Setup? Still, curiosity sliced through fear. I texted Nash, meeting Ariel's ex 10 a.m. East Side Cafe. Backup eyes, just in case. His reply came quick, stay visible. Record everything. Trust nothing. Would you meet someone tied to your betrayal just to finally get answers? The cafe was warm, smelling of burnt sugar and over-roasted espresso. Dorian was already seated, hoodie pulled tight, eyes weary but unflinching. He didn't smile. I'm not here to defend her, he said, voice gravelly. I'm here to stop her from burning anyone else. He slid a paper envelope across the table. Inside were copies of bank deposits, 3 years of them, originating from accounts in my name, funneled to Braxley Center and tagged under student numbers that weren't mine. She told me the money was from scholarships, he said. Later, I found out they were yours. I stared at the receipts. Every skipped vacation. Every holiday I spent budgeting instead of breathing. My generosity had been rewritten as silent servitude. She told everyone you were too proud to talk about it, Dorian added, eyes softening. That you liked playing martyr. My chest pulled tight. Pride didn't pay for her degree, I whispered. I did. Ever realized your generosity was rewritten as arrogance by someone you loved? He nodded like he knew shame too well. And now she's scrambling, he continued. Since the Instagram fallout, she's trying to paint herself as the victim again. He tapped his phone and played a voice memo. Ariel, crying, whispering, if she speaks, we're done. Stop her, Colton. I didn't flinch. I just pressed record on my own phone, slid it closer, captured every word. Dorian leaned back. I didn't come to destroy her. I came to stop the spiral. I believed him. But trust? No. He wasn't an ally. He was a witness. And I needed him standing, not out of loyalty, but out of truth. Would you trust the person who helped your betrayer, if they came clean too late? I left the cafe with the envelope under my arm and a resolve in my spine I hadn't felt since this all began. At Nash's office, I handed everything over, receipts, the audio file, and my notes. He flipped through them with practiced eyes. This changes everything, he said. You're not just defending yourself anymore. You're the whistleblower. The word stuck. Whistleblower. Not broken. Not angry. Just resolute. File the affidavit, I said. Make it public. As I walked out into the Charleston breeze, something uncoiled in me. I wasn't begging to be seen. I was finally seeing myself. Then my phone buzzed again. Private number. Joel. You're making a mistake, Maris, the message read. Blood always wins. I stared at it for a moment before replying. Then watch it drown itself. As I walked away, the church bells in Charleston rang noon, sharp, final, like a countdown. My phone was already vibrating when I opened my eyes, blinking light after light, notification after notification. I hadn't even touched my glasses yet, and the chaos had already arrived. Ariel had posted. Tagged everyone, family, coworkers, Colton's golf buddies, even my old Sunday school teacher. She accused me of financial control and emotional abuse. The caption read like a headline from a twisted tabloid, "When someone you trust uses money to control love." The screenshots were cherry-picked and doctored. Bank entries edited. Texts from years ago, stripped of context and twisted like knots around my name. In the comments. Classic gold digger. She was never right for Colton. Cold sister. Jealous spinster. I paused when I saw Joelle had commented with a heart. Colton had liked it. Not a word in defense. Not even a hesitation. This wasn't just a smear. It was character assassination, served with a smile and a filter. If someone lied about you publicly, would you stay silent or fight back? I wanted to scream. I opened my notes app and started drafting a full post, a detailed, furious list of everything I'd paid for, every time I'd stayed silent, every time I made sure they didn't fall even while I was crumbling. But Nash's voice echoed from our call the night before, "Let them overplay their hand. You only respond once." Clean. Strategic. I deleted the post. Instead, I shared a quote against a black screen: "Character is who you are when no one's watching." John Wooden. Then I put my phone down and opened my laptop. Behind the scenes, I saved every defamatory comment. Screenshotted Joelle's little heart. Screen recorded the post in case they edited it later. I wasn't reacting. I was collecting. Have you ever let silence speak louder than defense? I didn't expect what happened next. Simone Carr. A name I hadn't heard in years. She'd been one of the scholarship girls, quiet, serious, ambitious. I remembered her clinging to her acceptance letter like it was gold. She posted a long thread on X. And then Instagram. She once bought 12 laptops for a group of girls in my neighborhood. Never asked for her name to be attached. Just said, "Pay it forward when you can." She continued, "Maris Weller isn't who they say she is. She's who they hope you never find out about, because their lies don't stand next to her truth." Her words started trending. Others chimed in: "Former students, a barista I tipped too much one December, even a small bookstore owner whose rent I'd quietly covered once during a winter slump." A local blogger reposted the entire thread, the quiet hero behind Charleston scholarships. For a moment, I just watched. Not liking. Not commenting. Just breathing. Truth has a long shadow. Would you reveal private acts of kindness if it meant saving your reputation? Later that evening, the Braxleys retaliated again. Joelle posted a letter, flowery font, long paragraphs, as if written by a fragile matriarch weathering betrayal. "Sometimes daughters break your heart," it began, "and the world doesn't see the whole story." She was playing the long-suffering mother, desperate for empathy, hoping to reset the stage. It was full of vague regrets, a carefully planted seed of doubt. But the comments weren't buying it this time. Screenshots of her liking Ariel's original lies flooded in. Someone posted side-by-side photos of her previous posts bragging about the very donations she now claimed to know nothing about. I didn't respond. Again. I didn't have to. Then, a message popped up on my screen. "Simone. You need to see what I just found in the student records. It's about the fund." I froze, my hand hovering over the keyboard. I didn't know it yet, but the real firestorm hadn't even started. The Braxley corporate logo shimmered on the banner above the entrance, bold, golden, unearned. The same gala I once helped organize, smiling on Colton's arm, pretending that us meant partnership. Now, I walked in alone. The red carpet lights were blinding, more interrogation than invitation. Conversations softened as I passed. Someone's whisper trailed after me, "She came." Colton saw me before I reached the main doors. The flicker in his eyes, first surprise, then irritation, told me everything. He wasn't expecting a woman who'd survived the storm. I caught my reflection in a mirrored wall. Calm. Composed. I didn't come for attention, I came for ownership. My phone buzzed, Nash's message, "You're live in 5. The event hall looked like every lie they'd ever told, polished, rehearsed, empty. I took a deep breath and whispered, "This time, I tell the story." Have you ever walked back into the place that broke you, only to leave changed? When they introduced me, polite applause filled the air, thin, uncertain. I stepped onto the stage and faced the crowd. Colton stood at the edge, hands in pockets, pretending indifference. "Good evening," I began. I used to believe gratitude meant staying silent. Tonight, I choose truth. The screen behind me lit up, slides of documents, transfers, timelines. Each image was a confession they never thought I'd make public. Tuition receipts. Bank transactions under my name. I could feel the air shift. The sound of unease is different from noise, it hums, tightens, vibrates. "I didn't come to shame anyone," I said evenly. "I came to remind you that silence is not grace when it protects deceit." I quoted Maya Angelou, letting the weight of her words carry me, "When you know better, you do better." Then, the line that broke the air in half, "I am resigning from all Braxley family financial entanglements, effective immediately." Murmurs. Cameras. Flashbulbs. Colton's jaw tightened. Joelle's smile faltered. Ariel froze mid-expression, like someone realizing the fire was real, not theatrical. "Would you rather remain invisible, or become unforgettable?" As I stepped down, I heard clapping. 1, 2, then a wave. Simone Carr. Then Tessa Linwood. Both standing. Applause growing. And then a man from the press table stood up and said, "This is not the story they told us. This is the story she refused to hide." Applause spread like wind through dry grass. Colton sank back into his chair, shoulders heavy. Joelle's eyes darted, calculating damage. Ariel looked small for the first time in her life. Inside, I wasn't triumphant, I was free. When people you helped finally speak, does it feel like you win, or like they wake up? I walked past the crowd without breaking stride. Outside, the Charleston sun had turned gold and cold at once. The cameras followed. Reporters shouted questions, "Why now? Are you retaliating?" I smiled softly. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm free." On the sidewalk, I called Nash. "Will the filings be ready by Monday?" "They already are," he replied. "You just changed the whole board." Across the street, I saw Colton exit the hall surrounded by PR handlers, face tight and gray. He looked like a man who'd built a house of cards and finally heard the wind. Grandma's voice found me again, like it always did when things were both ending and beginning. "Success isn't what you hold. It's what you're willing to release." The air felt lighter when I exhaled. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean emptiness, but peace. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text read, "It's worse than you think. They're filing against you." I stared for a second, then smiled. "Bring it on," I whispered. The morning didn't arrive quietly, it came roaring through every screen in Charleston. Headlines splashed across my phone before I could even pour coffee: the Braxley files, misuse of funds, and a secret apartment. Every outlet had it. The receipts, the bank transfers, the property lease, all under Colton's signature, but the name on the lease? Ariel Danton. I sat in my kitchen, sunlight cutting through the blinds, coffee in hand, steady. For the first time in months, I didn't need to defend myself. The truth was finally loud enough to speak for me. Nash called, voice brimming with disbelief. It's official. They've buried themselves. I took a sip, let the words settle. Then I don't need to dig. On the TV, the footage rolled: Ariel's influencer partnerships dropping one by one, sponsors releasing statements about reputation alignment. Her followers turned on her in real time. The comment section became her undoing. Joelle's face flashed next on the screen, tight-lipped, carefully worded no comment. For once, her silence was the sound of collapse. Have you ever watched karma work in real time? It's slow at first, then sudden, all at once, like a wave breaking after a long inhale. By noon, I was standing in the courthouse corridor. Cameras everywhere. Reporters waiting. And there they were, Colton, Ariel, and two lawyers moving like a pack, cornered but still pretending to hunt. He stormed toward me, voice sharp and cracking. You leaked this, didn't you? I didn't blink. I didn't have to. You left the door wide open. Ariel's eyes were rimmed red, mascara streaking. You ruined me, you vindictive witch, she shouted, her voice trembling not from anger but fear. The cameras caught every syllable. Flash after flash. I leaned slightly forward and said quietly, you did that yourself. I just stopped covering for you. Court security stepped between us as reporters called my name. Behind them, Joelle appeared, disheveled, smaller somehow, the armor gone. What have you done to my family? She whispered, her tone part accusation, part confession. I met her gaze. Nothing you didn't start yourself. If someone accused you of the truth, would you even need to deny it? That afternoon, Braxley Holdings issued a public statement. Temporary suspension of leadership pending investigation. Translation: Colton was out. Ariel's name trended online, false saint. The same followers who once adored her now dissected her every post for hypocrisy. Nash texted, the countersuit's pointless now. The court's moving toward restitution in your favor. I didn't even smile. I just walked. Down the Charleston waterfront, the same path where Colton once told me I completed him. The irony wasn't poetic. It was justice. The air smelled of salt and winter and freedom. Tessa texted next, they're finished. Champagne or silence? I typed back, silence. Always silence. There's a kind of peace that only comes after the storm has screamed itself hoarse. That was today. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights right away. I lit one candle, set it on my desk, and opened my grandmother Lorraine Weller's old Bible. Inside the cover, her handwriting curved softly. Forgiveness isn't letting them go. It's letting yourself breathe. I whispered, I forgive myself first. Nash called again before nightfall. Your assets are restored. The Weller Fund is trending nationally. Congratulations, Maris, you've turned survival into a legacy. I smiled faintly. For the first time, I didn't feel like I'd won a battle. I felt like I'd closed a book. That night, I didn't check my phone before bed. Didn't brace for headlines or betrayal. I just slept. Until the voicemail came. The phone buzzed once, twice, then fell silent. When I listened, the voice was unmistakable, ragged, trembling, unfiltered. Maris, you have no idea what you've started. Colton. I played it twice. Then smiled softly to myself. Finally, I whispered, "You're right." The morning didn't arrive quietly, it came roaring through every screen in Charleston. Headlines splashed across my phone before I could even pour coffee: the Braxley files, misuse of funds, and a secret apartment. Every outlet had it. The receipts, the bank transfers, the property lease, all under Colton's signature, but the name on the lease? Ariel Danton. I sat in my kitchen, sunlight cutting through the blinds, coffee in hand, steady. For the first time in months, I didn't need to defend myself. The truth was finally loud enough to speak for me. Nash called, voice brimming with disbelief. It's official. They've buried themselves. I took a sip, let the words settle. Then I don't need to dig. On the TV, the footage rolled: Ariel's influencer partnerships dropping one by one, sponsors releasing statements about reputation alignment. Her followers turned on her in real time. The comment section became her undoing. Joelle's face flashed next on the screen, tight-lipped, carefully worded no comment. For once, her silence was the sound of collapse. Have you ever watched karma work in real time? It's slow at first, then sudden, all at once, like a wave breaking after a long inhale. By noon, I was standing in the courthouse corridor. Cameras everywhere. Reporters waiting. And there they were, Colton, Ariel, and two lawyers moving like a pack, cornered but still pretending to hunt. He stormed toward me, voice sharp and cracking. You leaked this, didn't you? I didn't blink. I didn't have to. You left the door wide open. Ariel's eyes were rimmed red, mascara streaking. You ruined me, you vindictive witch, she shouted, her voice trembling not from anger but fear. The cameras caught every syllable. Flash after flash. I leaned slightly forward and said quietly, you did that yourself. I just stopped covering for you. Court security stepped between us as reporters called my name. Behind them, Joelle appeared, disheveled, smaller somehow, the armor gone. What have you done to my family? She whispered, her tone part accusation, part confession. I met her gaze. Nothing you didn't start yourself. If someone accused you of the truth, would you even need to deny it? That afternoon, Braxley Holdings issued a public statement. Temporary suspension of leadership pending investigation. Translation: Colton was out. Ariel's name trended online, false saint. The same followers who once adored her now dissected her every post for hypocrisy. Nash texted, the countersuit's pointless now. The court's moving toward restitution in your favor. I didn't even smile. I just walked. Down the Charleston waterfront, the same path where Colton once told me I completed him. The irony wasn't poetic. It was justice. The air smelled of salt and winter and freedom. Tessa texted next, they're finished. Champagne or silence? I typed back, silence. Always silence. There's a kind of peace that only comes after the storm has screamed itself hoarse. That was today. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights right away. I lit one candle, set it on my desk, and opened my grandmother Lorraine Weller's old Bible. Inside the cover, her handwriting curved softly. Forgiveness isn't letting them go. It's letting yourself breathe. I whispered, I forgive myself first. Nash called again before nightfall. Your assets are restored. The Weller Fund is trending nationally. Congratulations, Maris, you've turned survival into a legacy. I smiled faintly. For the first time, I didn't feel like I'd won a battle. I felt like I'd closed a book. That night, I didn't check my phone before bed. Didn't brace for headlines or betrayal. I just slept. Until the voicemail came. The phone buzzed once, twice, then fell silent. When I listened, the voice was unmistakable, ragged, trembling, unfiltered. Maris, you have no idea what you've started. Colton. I played it twice. Then smiled softly to myself. Finally, I whispered, "You're right." The morning light stretched long and golden across my new dining room, warming the oak table I'd chosen myself. No floral centerpieces. No assigned seats. Just mismatched plates, clinking glasses, and the sound of something I hadn't heard in a long time, laughter that didn't come with strings attached. A little girl helped a retired teacher arrange the cranberry sauce. A young man whose scholarship had once been denied by the Braxleys now carved the turkey. Across from him, a single mother I'd met through the Weller Fund rocked her baby on her lap while sipping cider. Last Thanksgiving, I lost a seat at their table. This year, I built my own. The space was modest but alive, walls lined with art made by students, not decorators. No polished silence, no forced smiles. Just stories, overlapping voices, the honest chaos of real belonging. What if the family you choose becomes the one that heals you? Tessa Linwood raised a glass and grinned. You're the only woman I know who turns lawsuits into scholarships. Everyone laughed, and so did I, fully. Loudly. Not out of defiance or irony, but because the sound felt true again. I stood slowly and tapped the edge of my glass. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me enough to sit at this table. I looked around at each face, holding them gently with my gaze. Gratitude, I said, isn't staying quiet when you're wronged. It's knowing when to walk away and what to build instead. I nodded toward Lorraine's framed photo on the mantel. She taught me that strength doesn't shout. It stays. Nash Colburn, posted up near the window, raised his glass quietly. I ended with a quote I'd once whispered to myself in a dark room: true forgiveness is when you can say, "Thank you for that experience." Oprah. The room went still. Not with tension, but with something deeper. Reverence. Grace. We were halfway through second servings when there was a soft knock at the door. I opened it, heart steady. Colton stood there, thinner, older somehow, holding a slim envelope. No entourage. No smirk. You won, he said, voice low. I didn't gloat. No, Colton. I just stopped losing. He handed me the envelope. I'm selling the last property. Half's going to the Weller Fund. I nodded. No smile. Just peace. You taught me what love shouldn't feel like, I said. That's worth more than anything in that envelope. Would you have opened that door, or left it closed forever? He didn't reply. He turned and walked down the steps, the click of the door behind him marking the real end. I returned to the table. Simone Carr was telling a story about her first courtroom win. The little girl leaned over her plate. Miss Weller, were you scared when they all turned on you? I smiled, poured her more apple juice. Of course I was. But courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about sitting with it until it stands up with you. Dishes passed. Glasses clinked. The room glowed. I looked out at the Charleston skyline, the sun slipping below the rooftops, and whispered to myself. I left with nothing they could measure, and found everything that matters. And that was my Thanksgiving. I once thought losing everything meant ending a story. Now I know, it's how new ones begin.